I've had the backhoe plugged in all day, and I think it's probably time to do a little bit of plowing before the sun goes down. Has not warmed up very much today. I need to get some of these drifts cleared out of here because, well, if we get any more snow, or if it doesn't actually warm up a little bit, it's going to be around for a little while, so it'll make it a little easier on the mailman too. Right now it's still around 12 degrees below zero. That's Fahrenheit, so still pretty chilly, and this is probably the warmest part of the day, so it's going to get colder than that overnight. I got you on the cam up here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I ran heavy equipment my whole life, so we're going to take it easy and go a little slow out of the gate here, and we'll plow out this drift on our way. This is notorious for drifting here. We get a lot of wind out of the north and east, and that's where we get the worst weather. And it shouldn't take me long to get this all cleaned up today. Just want to make it passable. Hydraulics are really cold, so I am going to lift the backhoe up and put it in gear and let the transmission warm up a little bit, because even in the shop it has not necessarily been very warm. We'll let it run for here for a minute or two. I gave her a little bit of throttle, and even though this thing was plugged in all day, it hasn't even budged on the heat gauge, so, and the transmission temp's still ice cold as well. But I got it in four-wheel drive, got it lifted up, and letting the transmission and rear end and everything kind of warm up when it's not under a load. One of the first things I learned running a backhoe, or any piece of equipment actually, I ran mostly loaders digging basements. Don't push uphill unless you have to. Use gravity as your friend. Make a little room here for the trash man so he can get to the dumpster tomorrow maybe. Try to stay out of gravel as much as I possibly can. Just spread it out and it'll either pack down or melt. And I'll leave that right there. It's probably got a little bit of gravel in it, and that way I don't have to worry about it getting impregnated into the grass. So I went to Antarctica. Our family had an excavating business they started in the 71, I believe. My grandfather worked for another company here in Colorado before that. But I worked for them for, well, my whole life. On the payroll officially from the time I was about 16. I worked at the neighbor's dairy across the street for a while, but we got kind of tired of fighting the regulations and rules, and we hung it up around 2016 or so. And I think it was a wise decision. But on that note, I ended up just taking a job in Antarctica as a heavy equipment operator, just for something to do. I never really worked for anybody else my whole life other than the neighbor's dairy. So that was pretty interesting, and I enjoyed it. It was a short deployment. Did a lot of work on a lot of unique projects, a lot of science support, a lot of construction, because that was my background. I knew how to cut grade, which surprisingly is a finite skill these days. If the machine does not have Trimble, nobody knows how to cut grade. And I was taught to use a small eye level with a bubble, and I'll show you that one of these days. I might even have one in here I can bring out. But that's how we cut grade. And that's how we dug basements and pipelines, leach fields, you name it. Cut grade with an eye level. All the equipment in Antarctica, they run on a JP8 essentially. They call it AN8, which is an Antarctic blend with some anti-gelling additives and very hot fuel. But we don't have the gelling issues like we do stateside with normal diesel that's not a #1 or a winter blend. So surprisingly, that was not as big of a issue as you might expect at the bottom of the earth. Of course, everything gets plugged in. I'm not really going nuts with this. I just want to make it accessible. Just a walking path for my wife. So I was deployed last Christmas, so it's kind of nice to be home. I don't work there anymore. I don't think I'll go back. My wife has a great job that she really likes here, and I don't have any need to. I'd rather stay here at the place and work on my tractors, and I have a job now that is a lot less stress than being a supervisor, which is my second deployment. So after I was an operator, I'm assuming that they liked my skill set and my knowledge of construction, and I ended up running the whole heavy equipment department in McMurdo Station. And initially, that also included hiring for South Pole Station, but with the station rebuild project and the sheer size of the department, it needed to be broke up. It was too much for one person. I had a full-time assistant supervisor that helped with the hiring and a lot of the other tasking, and that helped substantially. So I did that for a few deployments as a supervisor. It was a big job. I had an awesome crew, some very talented people, people from all over the country. It's difficult to find people, especially people that want to commit to a 6 or 8 month deployment overseas, and somebody that has an established family or something. That's a big commitment, and I get that, and it was for me too. And at the time I first went down there, it was tough on my son, but he grew a lot. It was good for him. He was very attached to me, but I do regret those being deployed. That was more time I could have had with him before he passed, and it was very unfortunate. So that is something that I do think about daily. But it was one heck of an adventure, and my son was very proud of it. He liked that I did it, but he was also very happy when I was home and did not want me to go back. But after we lost him, I went back, because at that point it didn't really matter. My wife came with me the last deployment. She got a job as well as an admin for the National Science Foundation, and of course this is all contract work. I was full-time, so I would deploy, and then in the off-season I would hire other contract workers to assist building airfields and ice piers and construction projects. So it was a lot of fun. Had blasters, crane operators, and a ton of heavy equipment operators, and that's what I loved. The job I have now, I don't run equipment anymore. definitely a desk jockey, which is fine. I do miss it though. I don't know that I miss the cold and the mud, but that's where my skills were. It's what I did my whole life, and it was quite a leap of faith to take that job on, and especially for somebody that had not had a lot of job experience outside of the family business. I mean, that was the scary part. But at that point in my life, you know, I was ready for a challenge. You might even say I was in my midlife crisis, and the timing seemed right. But now the timing's right to be home and be with my family. And having lost my son, he's here forever. So I'm here with him forever. And someday I hope to see him again. I definitely struggle every day. And the holidays right now is super difficult. You can see I've been running this machine for, I don't know, 30 minutes, and that heat gauge has not hardly moved. I'm not running it hard, but it's still just an indicator of actually how cold it is out here. And that sun's going down, and the more it sets, the colder it's going to be. I'm going to leave this snow pile in the natural drainage here. I love this machine. I love backhoes. Can't get them stuck. If you get a backhoe stuck, you're doing something wrong. Because you can always wiggle yourself out with the backhoe. And unless you drive it into a bog, then you're doing something wrong. This way I can get my car out in the morning and I don't have to worry about it. I don't think we're expecting any more snow for a while, but I know we are expecting the cold. We do have some big drifts along the tree lines, fence lines where the weeds were, but it's not been substantial. Not terrible. Just knock this down and leave it spread out and let it melt. We used to do that in Antarctica as well. You just plow it into a slurry into the road and flatten it out, not leave any windrows, and let the solar gain hit the volcanic rock, that dark rock, and it will melt. There's a substantial melt-off season in Antarctica, which is one of the things that the Fleet Ops Department that I was in charge of was tasked with, was just maintaining open ditches, and it can happen very instantaneously. You'd be surprised how you can be below zero and still have so much runoff. It's very interesting. I think I'll rake some of this away. Just spread it out here in the driveway. I don't like pushing this snow and getting down to the surface because I have a gravel driveway and it's loose gravel, and if I get down into that, it just spreads all that stuff out all over, and I can't retrieve it out of the grass. It makes a mess. So best thing to do is just get rid of the drifts, spread it out, and let it melt. We have a big plan for 4G, for the head on 4G. Hopefully we're going to get it fixed, and I'll get some brakes and clutches, and we'll start cleaning things up and putting it back together. That'll be fun. Dad and I are enjoying the project quite a bit, so it'll be nice to start putting it back together. I think it'll run, and we're both so invested in it that one way or another it will run. And that means if I have to buy a part tractor, I'll buy a parts tractor. Neither one of us want to admit defeat. That thing is going to run. I've had a lot of trouble lately with my video equipment, and that's why I haven't been uploading at the frequency that I was before. I'm very bad at editing. Right now my sweetheart wife is inside editing a video to put up, and hopefully it works. I've edited the same video about 6 times and had it crash, and I've probably got, I don't know, I've probably got 100 hours in the dang thing, and I can't get it to go any further, and it's very frustrating. So no matter what I try, I can't seem to get it to work. It seems like I'd get to the end of the edit and then it would crash, which was the most frustrating part of it. You see that sun's going down. Look at that, it's still not warmed up. Transmission's warming up a little bit. I'm not really running it in 4-wheel drive. Don't really need it. This thing's a beast. You might laugh, that skid steer that we have, the little Caterpillar skid steer, we've actually lifted with this thing to set it inside of a crawl space to do a job. Normally we did it with our excavator or loader. We would just take the bucket off of the excavator and set it in a basement, and then I could grade up to the footers or clean out caisson spoils, and worked really well. Did hundreds and hundreds of drop-ins. We call them drop-ins. You drop in the skid steer and do the grading, backfill the plumbing if they had it, and prep everything for concrete in the basement. Pretty good with a loader. That's where I cut my teeth on cut and grade with a loader, digging basements. It's a weird thing that only Coloradans do for whatever reason. The clay allows you to dig basements and the walls will stand up. Of course, if you get in groundwater or rock, you can't. Anything impervious you can't cut, but I'm going to use the saying from my grandfather and say, good enough. I think that's good enough for today. My dad was telling me a story one time. It made me think of that because of how close I am to the eave on this roof, but he had done a job for a guy, and this was back in the 70s, right after they started for the business, and he dug a room addition, I think it was, with an old Allis-Chalmers backhoe with no cab, and he did a really nice job. It was really level and on grade. The customer was happy, the flat workers were happy, the foundation people were happy, and my dad gets ready to leave and go load up the machine, and on his way out with the backhoe, he turns a corner a little short, and the top of the boom takes out the eave on the guy's roof, and he was so embarrassed. The guy was really good about it, but that's one of those mistakes that sometimes you make that it's unfortunate, but you know, you're running a big piece of metal around, and it can happen. If you're not on your game 100% of the time, it can happen. If you're tired or anything, and you get complacent, people start telling you you're really the best that there ever was. You know, it messes with your head. I did something similar. I didn't damage a house, but I backed over a utility box with a loader. The customer, again, on that one was really kind and not too hard on me. We had really good customers. I do want to thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and have a happy holidays. We'll see you on the next one. That is a beautiful sunset. Funny how you learn to appreciate those things.